right, good afternoon and welcome to this PBS training town hall. We are really happy to be here today to go over some of the PBS basics with you. By way of introductions, my name is Jeff Peterson. I am APFA National Contract Chair, and we'll go around the room and introduce everyone that's here in the room at APFA headquarters in Euless, Texas. Todd, do you want to start?
Hello, I'm Todd Smitell. I'm a Miami-based flight attendant.
Hi everyone, I'm Josh Black, APFA National Secretary. So glad to have you guys on today.
I'm Marty McMillan. I am the APFA National Scheduling Chair.
I'm Renee Mayer. I'm the JCBA Specialist.
Hi, I'm Linda Hartling, APFA, in helping with scheduling.
All right. So the reason why one of the major reasons that we decided to do this town hall today is because we know that there are a lot of you coming back from EVLOA that haven't had a chance to bid in a very long time. While PBS hasn't really changed since then, the flying has. In addition to the flight attendants coming back from EVLOA, we know there is an appetite for more resources for PBS bidding for all of us. The reality is that more people are back on reserve, and many of us are on reserve for the first time in a long time, some even for the first time since we've been bidding in PBS. We want to do what we can to help set you up for success. And while we won't be able to cover as much as we'd like to, if we touched on every corner of PBS today, we would be here for 8 hours. But we do want to cover the things that we hear about the most often. So in addition to bidding for reserve days off, some of the things we'll go over are specific versus generic bidding for line holders, bidding your target credit range or TCR, bidding for vacation premiums, and bidding for the holidays. Again, we know that we won't be able to talk about everything and answer every single question that you have. So this is just the first of more PBS town halls that we want to have. We do appreciate all of you who have sent in your questions already. We have been getting them as we've been preparing in the last couple of hours. We have been getting more and more questions and are attempting to incorporate as many of those answers into our presentation as possible. We probably will not be able to do a Q&A just because everything that we have prepared is probably going to take the full 2 hours. So it's unlikely that we'll be able to do a Q&A at the end. However, we will attempt to respond to every single one of your questions and reach out to you if you have submitted a question and we don't get to it today. This town hall is being recorded and will be available later today on apfa.org. That way, if you can't stay for the entire presentation, you can come back to it and catch up on what you have missed. And even if you are able to stick it out with us for the entire 2 hours, having the session recorded will give you the opportunity to go back and listen to parts you may want to review again. You can always fast forward and rewind and watch it at your own pace. We will also post a PowerPoint that we will be presenting today. Our presentation will include a lot of information, so you probably won't be able to read it all word for word as we go over it. That is why we will upload it all to the APFA website so you can go over it again at your own pace. And that way you can review the video of the town hall and the PowerPoint slideshow simultaneously that we have prepared. So let's get right to it. As I promised, one of the first things we're going to talk about is line holder bidding. So I'm going to, oh wait, excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm jumping ahead. I'm sorry.
Jeff's excited to share that with you. So, but before we get started, we wanted to give you some help and let you know fabric is gone. And so there are some resources that are available though. And we do want to point out those resources and where you can find help should you need it once you start bidding in PBS. Obviously, first place to go is JetNet. Go to the flight service page. You'll see a tab in the middle of the flight service page titled Crew Change. And once you click on that, you're going to go to a PBS page, and we'll go over that in a little more detail in just a moment. You can also go to the APFA website. It's apfa.org, and then click on departments, then to scheduling, then to PBS, and we'll also show you some things on that. And then something that's changed is how you report miss awards, and that's all done through the flight attendant portal, the crew portal, and we'll talk about that a little bit as well. Thank you. So once you click on Crew Change off of JetNet, one of the things you'll see is this great big PBS banner, and you'll see there's a PBS menu over to the left side. And then under those, you'll see PBS guides. There's a quick guide, there's a full guide, and then there's also a TBS guide, the training bidding system. If you want a quick answer, you could go right to the quick guide. If that's not going to give you the information that you're looking for, you might want to look over at the PBS, the full PBS guide. For those of you that don't really like to read and would rather just have somebody show you some things, then you can click on those videos. They're excellent resources to also show you some things about bidding in PBS. Also, while you're on Crew Change, you might want to click around. There's so much good information there. One of the things that we wanted to point out to you are the charts and timelines that are on there. So, you know, a lot of the questions that we get here at APFA are always, when does bidding open for this? When is bidding for that? When do I have to have my bid in for transfers? All of that is explained on this charts and timeline. So if you go to those charts, one of the first ones you'll see are monthly bidding for every kind of thing that you can think of. It shows the date up at the top. It shows what you're bidding for. It'll show open date, close date. And just remember, all those bidding timelines are 12 o'clock noon Dallas time for opening and closing unless it's otherwise stated. Back up one. That's okay. All right, so for PBS specific, there's also a calendar. I personally find this calendar a little messy, so I went over to the side and you'll see in red, I wrote out the line holder reserve designator, the LRD, when it opens and when it closes. And then down at the bottom left, I put in the PBS bidding timelines for you as well, just because I think it makes it consolidated, nice, easy place to find those dates if you ever need those. So on the APFA website, once you go to apfa.org, you'll see the departments tab across the top. And if you click on that, it'll take you to a bunch of icons and you'll just look for the scheduling one. But before we go to that, I just wanted to let you guys know, if you haven't used APFA in a long time, the website, and you need to reset your password, you can email membership@apfa.org, or you can call. I've given the number right there to have your password reset, and Eric will be more than happy to help you. Also, one other thing we wanted to mention is that we do have extended hours now for our APFA contract and scheduling reps, and they're available from 7 a.m. till 7 p.m. via the telephone, Monday through Friday. And then we have live chat in the evenings from 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. Monday through Friday, as well as holidays and weekends from 9 to 5. If you ever need to contact a rep about any contractor scheduling issue. They won't be able to help you with PBS questions, but they are here for any other contractor scheduling questions. Once you go to that scheduling tab on the APFA website, you'll see PBS over to the right, and then any one of those blue topics you can click on, and it will have information there that you might want to take a look at. Especially if you buddy bid, you might really want to check out that buddy bidding checklist. That's a very important one. Okay, once you go on the crew portal and you go to monthly bids, you'll see PBS. And once you click on PBS, it opens up a whole new window. And this is your PBS dashboard. And across the top, you'll see all the different types of tabs that you'll use while you're bidding. Down underneath that, you'll see your seniority, and then how many targeted reserves, how many targeted line holders, and then your relative percentage of where you fall within your group. So in this case, this is mine, and you can see I'm a line holder in Charlotte, and my relative seniority is not good. And then over to the left, you'll see the calendar, the monthly calendar. If you have any pre-planned absences like jury duty that you submitted or vacation, those will all be marked off on that calendar as well. All right, once bids are out, this is a question we get almost every single month. We get at least 5 or 6 phone calls. My bids are out, I don't have an award. Well, the first thing we always ask is, did you click the award tab? Because you have to click the tab to display your award. It's not just going to magically appear on your dashboard. So always make sure you click that award tab once the bids are out. Okay, now, what if you think you have a miss award? What should you do next? As I mentioned, Fabric is gone, so there's a new system in place for filing a Miss Award. And you'll go to the crew portal, and at the top, you'll see a little link called Links. And then once you click that, you'll see the Support tab. Click on the Support tab, and it's going to open up this page. And on that Support tab, where I put the arrow, it shows select one. And once you do that, you pick PBS, and then it gives you a great big area to put your summary of why you think you have a Miss Award. The PBS admins will respond to you, and these are company PBS specialists. They're the administrative team for PBS. They'll respond to you with why they feel like you did have a Miss Award or you didn't have a Miss Award, but the results or their response is going to be located here. So you'll have to go back into the Links tab and check. They are very quick about responding during the dispute period for PBS, so do go back in and check and see what they've responded. If you disagree with what they have written to you, then you can contact APFA about your potential Miss Award. And on that main page, the landing page for apfa.org, you'll scroll down just a little bit and you have all these little icons, and you'll want to click on the PBS Miss Award report form and just click on that, and they'll formal display, and you can just complete that and then hit submit. It goes automatically to the 4 of us plus a couple others that assist with answering those every month. And we do have access to what the PBS admins have responded to you as well. So we can see kind of where they're coming from and where you're coming from. So we'll take a look at it following that. Okay, back to Jeff.
All right. Thank you, Marty. So as I promised, we're going to talk about some line holder bidding tips here. I'm going to start by talking about generic bidding. So when we talk about generic bidding, this is a way to communicate with PBS to tell the system the types of trips you'd like to fly. You're not really picking a specific sequence on a specific day. You're saying, I want these types of trips. So it applies generic pairing properties to create a pool of trips for PBS to consider awarding you. So I'm actually going to go over here to PBS Live. This is actually my bid for this month. So I'm going to walk you through what that looks like a little bit. So Marty walked us through the tabs here. So to tell the system what kind of trips you would like to bid, the pairing tab here is where you're going to spend, where I spend a lot of my time bidding here. So I tell it what kind of trips I would like to fly. So I have kind of made up a small mock bid here for you already, so you can see. So let's just say that my first choice is Honolulu, and Charlotte, we have a nice Honolulu trip. It's a 3-day trip. So I'm going to put that in my layer 1. And let's see, I'm going to move some of these around a little bit here so that we make sure we have enough. We got a full. So we have a full layer here. So we have, so as you can see, when I go to, so as I add these properties, so there are 32 pairing properties here in PBS. You can use all of these to tell the system the kind of trips that you'd like to bid. So again, one of the big questions that we've gotten over the last couple of days is, what is the difference between a calendar day or a pairing length and a duty period? So if you say prefer pairing length, that is telling the system how many calendar days you would like the trip to be. So if I put that I want to fly a turn, let's say I'm going to unselect Honolulu here really quick. If I say I want to fly turns in my layer 1, oops. That's anything that only touches 1 calendar day. And the difference between that and 1 duty period is that I could have a trip, for example, that is 1 duty period that is actually a turn, but it actually touches 2 calendar days. So if I have a trip that ends after midnight, for example, it's going to be pairing length 2, preferred duty period. It would be at 1 duty period though. So just want to kind of point out the difference between what a pairing length is and what a duty period is. Does that make sense? Yes, perfect. Some of the other questions that is one way. One of the questions that we got today was how to bid only turns. So you can either use prefer pairing length 1, or you can use prefer duty period 1. But if you use preferred pairing length 1, it's not going to be anything that ends after midnight. So that's how you would, that's one of the ways that you can bid for turns. Another question that we have gotten today is bidding for satellites, how to avoid or bid for satellites. So a satellite trip is actually, it's a kind of, that comes under the category of preferred pairing type. So if I want to bid satellite, and we actually don't have a,
Under the code term.
it's under the code term. Oh, excuse me, I'm using the wrong property. Yes, there we go. Co-terminal satellite. Thank you, Renee. I've never bid for a satellite. So in Charlotte, we actually have the Raleigh satellite there. So if I wanted to bid for Raleigh trips, I would actually need to select them. They are not going to be populated in my pairing pools unless I actually go to this property, co-terminal satellite airport, and put that. So if I put that in layer 1, let's see actually what there is. And so if I do turns in layer 1 that are out of Raleigh, let's see what populates there. And there are quite a, oh, nope, I added Honolulu as well, didn't I? So I need to,
No, that was layer 7.
that was layer 7, my
Yeah.
bad, thank you.
Go
back?
down
Okay.
to layer 1.
So we're gonna also spend a lot of time in our layer tab because our layer tab is where we can check our work. So
Yes.
we will see that there are 3 pages of turns out of Raleigh, Cancun, there's some 4-leg turns in there. Okay, some 3-leg and 4-leg turns in there. All right, so that's that. So hopefully that answers the question about bidding or avoiding satellites. If you don't want to bid satellites, don't use that property. The system will not automatically include any satellite pairings in your pairing pools if you don't select that co-terminal satellite, whatever your satellite would be at your base. And in my case, it's Raleigh. Another question we got today was avoiding or bidding for red-eye pairings. Again, red-eyes by definition are any pairing that has a duty period that touches 0100 home base time. Did I say that right? I'm making sure that I 0100 to 0101 home base time at a duty period that touches that at any point in your trip. So if there is a trip that meets that criteria, it won't automatically populate either. So again, you would want to go, that's also a red eye is actually a pairing type. So if you wanted to bid for red eye trips, you could, that would be under pairing type. And that's red eyes. I'm going to put that in here. And I'm going to unselect all these other things that I have in here. I know I'm probably going faster than you would like, but so out of Charlotte, we have these types of trips that actually hit this one here, Seattle back to Charlotte, touches 0100 to 0101 home base time, which for me is Charlotte. So if you don't want to fly red eyes, simply don't use that property.
They're also always domestic.
And they're always domestic. A red eye by definition is domestic. So you could have an international trip that touches that 0100 to 0101 that is not by contractual definition a red eye. So if you're trying to avoid them, don't use that property. But if you do want red eyes, then that's one of the ways that you would find them. And there are some nuances to that, and I don't want to necessarily bog us down with too many of the nuances of red eyes, but that's generally speaking, that's how you bid them or avoid them. So I've walked you through some of the generic pairing types that we can use. You can always add and remove pairings and preferences to kind of refine what you're putting in your bids. The other type of bidding that we're going to talk about today is specific bidding. Specific bidding is you're telling the system, I want this trip on this sequence number on this date. And so if you're going to be doing specific bidding, you would go down here under the pairing tab. You'll go down here to search pairings, and under search pairings, that's essentially where you will, this is essentially the entire bid sheet or the entire allocation sheet here. There's 706 pages for Charlotte for the month of November. And so you can use the same criteria or preferences that you use for generic bidding to narrow down that search there. So again, I'm going to go to my layover at City Honolulu because man, I wish I could hold Honolulu. And I'm going to select that as my search criteria. So as you see, that narrowed it down to only Honolulu trips are going to be here in my in my search function right now. So let's just say I would like to bid for Honolulu trips every Monday. So I'm going to select it on the 8th. And I'm going to add that to layer 1. On the 15th, I'm going to add that to layer 1. On the 22nd, And then again on the 29th, adding that to layer 1. And I got a little ahead of myself here with days off. I'm not going to talk about days off just yet. So I'm going to go back to my layer tab, and I'm going to make sure that I have nothing else here, no other generic pairings in layer 1. And I have these 4 Honolulu trips. So that's 32 pairings that I have in my layer 1 with these 4 generic, or these 4 specific Honolulu trips. Okay. Now, Honolulu is an NIPD trip. It's a pairing type NIPD. So sometimes when people are bidding specifically, they think they need to tell the system, well, I only want Honolulus that are NIPD. Well, the system already knows that Honolulu is an NIPD, so you don't necessarily need to qualify that specific bid by clicking prefer pairing type NIPD. If you do actually click that generic pairing type NIPD, what you're doing is combining generic and specific bids in the same layer. And you see how just by adding that preferred pairing type NIPD into layer 1, I've now gone from 32 pairings up to 2,422. So what I've effectively done is I have put those 4 Honolulu trips in layer 1, and now I've we now have 39 pages of trips here. So we've got the Honolulu trips. But if we fast forward, say, to page 11, you're going to see that there's a bunch of other trips in here. There's some turns, there's Caribbean turns, there's some other, multi-day trips that have NIPD legs in them. So if you only want those 4 trips, don't include any other generic pairing properties in that layer. The one exception to that is position order. You can use a generic position order, use that property in conjunction with a specific pairing. I'm going to try and do this really quick. I can't even remember how many positions are on the Honolulu trip. It's probably 9 because it's a 777, I think. And I've messed it up. So it will let you know if I bid it wrong. So the system won't let you bid a wrong position.
So you do a comma between.
Yes, you do a comma. So you do 01, 02. I'm just to make it easy, I'm going to bid them in order. I would obviously put a different order because that's not the order I would bid them in. Let's just say there's 9 positions. I'm not sure right now on an NIPD 777 how many positions that would be. But so by including position order, you're not modifying the number of pairings that are going to be in that pairing pool. Does that make sense? Perfect. All right. Another question that I got today, that we got today, was overlapping specific sequences. So I'm going to go back to the search pairings function and look at the bid sheet again. And so I have these 4 Honolulu trips. Now, if I were to bid overlapping specific sequences in this week, so let's say I'm going to bid for Honolulu on the 8th, Honolulu on the 9th, and then Honolulu on the 10th. These 3 trips overlap. I can't physically work all 3 of these trips. I can't work a trip that departs on the 8th. I can't work a 3-day trip that departs on the 9th and a 3-day trip that departs on the 10th. So at this point, like Renee said, all sequences in a layer are considered equal. So at that point, assuming at my seniority, I can hold all 3 of those, because because they're all in the same layer, the system would now then choose for me which of those 3 that it would award me. Okay, does that make sense? Perfect. All right. So we already talked about using caution when combining specific and generic bids in the same layer. Everything is okay. Just going through my notes here, making sure I'm covering everything. We've already gone to the pairing tab to talk about what the pairing tab looks like for us here, or excuse me, the layer tab. So the layer tab it's almost like if you're shopping on Amazon, it's almost like your checkout card. You can go in there and you can check, and before you click buy, you make sure that everything that you have in here in your pairing set and your layers is actually what you intended to do. All right. Now, generally speaking, actually, as a general rule, you should bid in all 7 layers. And I want to, okay. This mouse today is giving me some angst here. Okay, so I want to talk about making sure that the pairing properties you use don't conflict and create a layer that have zeros in your layers. And now we got a question just a little bit ago from a flight attendant in Boston asking how they ended up with zeros in their pairing pools. I have some zeros in layer 5 and layer 6, as you can see. And so I'm going to review my bid and see what I did to cause a conflict in layers 5 and 6. So in layers 5 and 6, I've asked for 2-day pairing length 2 NIPD trips that are minimum layover 13 hours and that are maximum landing per duty 2. I'm trying to figure out what conflict I've created for myself here.
You have
Whether
2 maximum landings per duty. 2-day trip.
Oh, you know why? Because I have, okay, in layer 4, okay, so in layer 4, I have pairing length
Oh.
2. All right. So this was my own unforced error right here. So I put pairing length 2 in layer 4. So that's pulling, and you notice that nothing else, I have nothing else in layer 4 here. You look at your bid vertically. You read top to bottom here. So everything that I have, the only thing that I have in layer 4 here is preferred pairing length 2, meaning I want a trip that touches 2 calendar days. So that's pulling in every single trip in the bid sheet, NIPD, regular, everything that is in the bid sheet that's pairing length 2 is in layer 4. So when I move on to layer 5, I have said I want pairing length 2, NIPD, 13-hour layovers, maximum landings per duty 2, but I've already bid for all those trips in layer 4, so I'm not actually adding anything new into my layer 5. So that's actually why I have zeros in layers 5 and 6. And it's not until 7 where I've actually added anything new by adding just generic NIPD. So to fix this, what I will do is I'm going to move everything over a layer. I'm going to put, because what I actually meant to do here, I think I just got ahead of myself earlier when I was clicking around, is I meant to put pairing length 2, NIPD trips. I would really like to have, I'm not a fan of these short layovers, so I need at least 13 hours. And I would like no more than 2 legs a day if at all possible. So now I go back up to layer 4, and now I have 130 pairings in that layer. Now, and since I'm repeating the same exact bid in layer 5, that's why I still have a 0 in layer 5. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to unselect minimum layover time 13 hours in layer 5. And so now I've added 24 pairings in layer 5, and now I've got a 0 again in layer 6. So what I'm going to do is unselect the maximum landings per duty 2, because now 5 and 6 are identical. So I'm going to unselect maximum landings per duty in layer 6. So you see how I'm expanding the pairings that I'm giving the system to award me. I'm telling it what I would really like to have. I would really like to have Honolulu. I would really, after that, if I can't have Honolulu, I'd really like to have Frankfurt and then London. And then if I can't hold any of those, which those are all unlikely at my seniority, then what's more realistic for me is these 2-day NIPD trips, minimum layover 13 hours, no more than 2 legs a day. If I can't hold that criteria with 13 hours, then okay, I'll let go of the 13-hour layover time. And if I can't hold all of that, then I'm now willing to go to 2-day NIPD trips. And my last layer is I like the paid premiums for working Caribbean, for working NIPD. So my layer 7 is going to be any NIPD trip at all. So that is a basic 7-layer bid. I encourage everyone to bid all the way to layer 7, just so you make sure that there are enough pairings in your pairing pools that the system can choose from, so that, if there's not enough pairings that you bid for, then the system has to choose for you. And I would rather choose for myself. All right. Everybody keeping up with me? Awesome. All right. The other important portion of a line holder bid are going to be line and days off properties. So the line properties, while they don't contribute to your pairing pools, you're not telling the system what kinds of trips that you would like to have using this type of a pairing property, but what you are doing is telling the system how you would like it structured on your line. So let's say, for example, a good example is a work block size. How many days in a row you would like to work without a day off? So let's just say I put in a work block size of 2. So I want no less than 2 days in a row. But let's just say I put that same property no more than 2 days in a row. So a minimum of 2 days in a row working and a maximum of 2 days in a row working. If I add that to layer 1, I'm going to go back to my layer tab and see what that does to my bid here. So you see how that doesn't change the number of pairings that I have in my pairing pool. But if you remember, I have Honolulu trips. I have these specific Honolulu trips in my layer 1. Those are all 3-day trips, calendar day 3, pairing length 3. But here, this line property that I've used is work block size 2, minimum 2, maximum 2. Those two things are incongruent. I can't have a work block size of 2 when I'm bidding for 3-day trips. So you want to make sure that the line properties you're using make sense for the trips that you're bidding. So so when I get to my generic layers here in layer 4 NIPD trip. So if I wanted to make sure, I might use that property for the layer 4, where I would say, I want 2-day trips, but I don't want more than 2 of them I don't want more than 1 in a row. I want. That's true. Linda just reminded me that I couldn't use that. If I don't use that in layer 1, I can't use that in a later layer because I can't be more restrictive. So the default is going to be 1 through 6. So whatever you choose in layer 1, you can't go more restrictive later on. So if I use the default in layer 1, I can expand on that and make it broader, but I couldn't make it any more narrower in a later layer. Thank you for keeping me honest there, Linda.
Well, because if it would have awarded you a Honolulu in layer 1, it now comes to layer 4 and says you only want 2 days, so that doesn't bite. Does that make sense? Because it already gave you trips with other properties.
Yeah, it's already looking to award you based on the parameters that you put there. So thank you, Linda, for backing me up there. Another question that we got to, over the last couple of days are 2 line properties, multiple pairings and doubling up. So I want to talk about those line properties really quick. A multiple pairing is, now help me explain this. I know what it is in my head, but trying to describe what it is.
You have rest in
So
between.
a multiple pairing is you have a trip that ends on the same calendar day that another trip starts. But as Marty said, you have rest in between.
Legal rest, yeah.
Yeah, legal rest, excuse me, legal rest. So for example, I could end a trip after midnight, might release. I like to do a lot of, back when I was in New York, I would do a lot of Miami turns that would release after midnight. And then I would work that same trip again the next day. But since the one ended on the same calendar day as the next one started, I had to use the allow multiple pairings button here. So this property here, if you want trips that have a release and a report on the same day with legal rest in between, you would want to apply this this property here. So if I apply it here, this version here, that will allow it for the entire month, or I can just allow for multiple pairings on specific dates here. The other property that we got a lot of interest in these questions over the last few days is doubling up. A double up is a trip, one trip ends and another trip begins, and all there is there's a 30-minute buffer in between, but they're all still part of the same duty period. Am I explaining that well?
It could be more than 30 minutes in between. What the system actually looks for is that when you report to duty that morning, that day, to the, and you know, let's say you come back home to base and then you go out on another trip, and that second duty period, when it releases, that whole entire time, these 2 legs with whatever time you have in between has to fit in a 14-hour period. So you could actually have 3 or 4 hours in between, as long as it doesn't exceed the 14.
Right. So hopefully we've described the difference between multiple pairings and double ups in a way that is coherent to you all. So we'll move on to the next slide that I have, and later on when I'm done here on my own bid, I'm going to fast forward through all the slides that I prepared. Those will, like I said, those will be available on the website later on, so you can look at what we're doing here in conjunction with the slides that we prepared. Line holder bidding days off. So if you want to bid a day off as a line holder, you can do so here on the calendar. Let's say, if I'm bidding in the layer that I'm bidding specifically, I don't necessarily need to bid days off because I'm only telling the system I want the trip on the 8th, 9th, 10th, or the other 3 trips on the 15th, 22nd, or 29th. So I don't need to necessarily bid days off in that layer. But if I did, by saying I want the 8th off, it's actually, if it's a specific sequence bid over a day off that I've bid, the sequence is going to be looked at before the day off is going to be looked at. So I'm actually going to go to a different layer where I have generic bids. So layer 2 is where I have my Frankfurt bids. let's say I want to have the 8th off that month. Let's just keep it simple. I didn't put that in my layer 2 now, did I? No? Okay. So I'm going to keep it simple. By bidding the 8th off in layer 2 with my Frankfurt bid, I'm saying I don't want any trip that touches the calendar date on the 8th. So that's if it's a 3-day trip, that's the Frankfurt that departs on the 6th, because that returns on the 8th. The Frankfurt trip that departs on the 7th.
Cannot come back on the 8th.
That's what I'm saying. I'm
Oh,
excluding that.
gotcha.
Yes,
Excluding.
again, Linda's keeping me honest here. So I'm excluding any trip that departs on the 6th because it releases on the 8th. Any trip that departs on the 7th because it lays over on the 8th. And any Frankfurt trip that departs on the 8th. So by bidding one calendar day off, I've actually eliminated 3 entire pairings or trips from my bid. So that's how you bid line holder days off on your calendar. Of course, you can bid more than 1 day off if you'd like, and you can switch that around based on the trips that you have in each layer. I did touch briefly on the days off line. It's a property. For example, if I wanted to bid, let's see, minimum days off between work blocks, that's one that comes up a lot. If I wanted to make sure that between my work blocks, I have at least 2 days off between my working blocks, that's the type of property that you would use to express that. All right, Renee, am I making sense here?
Yep.
All right, thank you. All right, and we got a lot of questions today over the last couple of days on your standing bid. So I am going to go to my standing bid here, and actually, because I'm going to show you how to export your standing bid, I'm going to delete everything I have in my current bid so that I'm not creating any conflicts as I export my standing bid. You know what? The only thing I'm going to leave in there is my position order. All right. So here's my standing bid. So I have a basic standing bid, and this standing bid is there. The system will read it as long as I have done nothing else in the bid. As long as I haven't bid any days off, or I haven't bid any waivers or anything else under the days off pairing tab, under the pairing tab, under the line tab, the system will read your standing bid as long as you don't do anything else. However, I always suggest you export your standing bid to your current bid. That'll take, just as you click that button, it'll take a couple of seconds for everything to migrate over. And I have done something here to create a bunch of, no, there it goes. Okay, I created a bunch of zeros. I thought I had messed it up again. So by exporting everything over into my current bid, that way I can see and make sure that I am populating trips in each of my layers. I had a friend of mine call me yesterday because they were bidding Milan trips in New York. And they were using their standing bid because every month they bid Milan layer 1, I think it's Athens in layer 2, whatever other IPD trips in layer 3. And they called me and they're like, how come I'm getting zeros in layer 1? Well, I looked at the bid sheet and there's only one Milan trip for the entire month of November in New York. So that's why we encourage you to export your bid over to make sure that the trips that you're bidding for actually exist for that month, because our bid sheets change, the trips that we have every month change, the frequencies change. So if you are going to, especially if you're going to bid days off in conjunction with your standing bid, I encourage you to export it first and then come to your calendar, because if you do your calendar first and then forget to export your standing bid, it's going to read what you have in your current bid and it's not going to look at your standing bid. Am I missing something, Linda?
No,
Awesome.
no, you got it.
All right, I'm looking, I can't see anybody's face because everybody's got their mask on, so I'm trying to read people's eyes here. One of the questions that we got today is, can I access my standing bids after bids close? Yes, you can. During the PBS processing, obviously we can't get into PBS, but anytime that we have access to the PBS system, you can go into your standing bid and you can alter it at any point throughout the month as you think about it. Somebody also asked today about days off for your standing bid. So while you can't use the calendar, there's no calendar days off on your standing bid because those change every single month. There are some generic properties we can use here for your standing bid for days off, and that would be weekend. I think we've got days. I'm trying to remember where it falls on this. Help me find it.
On the bottom.
There's probably a whole bunch of people at home screaming at their screens right now. It's on the bottom. They're like, there it is. I think it's maximum. Well, there's maximum. No, you can actually say day of the week, right?
Any of the weeks, yeah.
Hang on. You just, I lost it again. I think it's a little further up. Oh, we go on the
Oh
wrong
my
direction.
goodness, okay. The day off,
Here,
maximize,
Yeah.
but that's maximize weekend days off. So I guess that's the only one that we can,
and total days off and blah.
I thought there was a day of the week
Oh, for
off.
You already have it at the,
Well, it's,
Did you see it?
I thought I just did, sorry.
Okay,
I should go and.
I could have sworn there was a,
Mhm.
it's been a long time since I've looked at my standing bid. Okay, forgive me for taking us down that rabbit hole. That question came in at the last minute, so I didn't have time to research my standing bid before.
We'll get back to you.
Okay, we'll get back to you. So that's why, so if, since there is not. Okay. All right, so we'll move on. I don't want to spend too much time there, but so yeah, so if you do have, if you want to, so there's no way to put in days off in your other than maximize weekend days off. There's no way to do that in your standing bid. So export your standing bid, use the calendar to bid the days off that you would like to bid off. And then someone asked how to delete your standing bid. It's very simple. It's literally like how you delete any other bid on PBS, is you click the X's. There's no way to clear it all out without clicking each X individually. But if you just leave the mouse there, they'll
Jeff,
all-
is that the same for your regular bid if I'm bidding, because that question has come up as well?
they have week off. Huh?
oh, right below,
Preferred position order.
Oh, did you just find it?
Okay, we found it. Okay, all right. I'm so sorry.
it's called day off of week. Day
Day-
of week off.
Reserve day of week off.
Oh, it's
Not
reserve day of
reserve,
week
no.
off. That's a reserve.
You're looking at reserve. This one is just day of week off.
How come
There
I,
is another one. Okay. Oh, it's right up there.
Prefer
Yeah.
aircraft, avoid aircraft.
It's underneath the position orders.
Maximum.
You're right, almost,
you might
It goes-
already have it at the top.
I
prefer aircraft, avoid aircraft, prefer position, day of week off.
You have a standing bid in?
I just deleted the whole thing.
Oh, okay.
It starts from the bottom.
That's okay.
Okay,
Yeah, that's just the one.
all right. So sorry. That's so weird. So there's, I need to fill out a support tab form to find out why I don't have
You can
that.
get a day
I
off.
don't get a day off. Okay. All right, so I think that covers everything that I had here. So I'm gonna relinquish control of the mouse and the keyboard over to this side of the room.
Okay. Hello. So what we are going to talk about next, oh, he had not gone through.
Oh.
Let's see. These are all the slides that Jeffrey had prepared for you. As you can see, it was very detailed. There's a lot of information. So you may go through it at your leisure with a cup of coffee, glass of wine. And let's go talk about TCR. So TCR is your target credit range. This is where you tell PBS how many hours that you want for your line next month. If you do not use this property, it will default to a 70 to 90 hour month. The next thing is, so 70 to 90 is the default. The lowest that you can bid is 40 hours and the highest is 110 hours. Now, going low time below 70 or going high, which is above 90 hours, it depends on your seniority if you can hold it. And also remember, sometimes we have a minimum requirement or a maximum line, and you might not be able to hold it. When you bid, please remember to do a range of at least 5 hours between. So if you bid 40 to 43, it is going to adjust it 40 to 45. Now, when you have a TCR, you can build actually your line in two different ways, okay? You could pick a TCR, the hours that you want, and then you look for the trips that fit within it. Or you go from the other direction and you look at the trips that you want, then you go in and add them up to give you the idea of the TCR that you need to bid. If you look at this slide, we did a simple math of a 15-hour trip, right? 4 of them, 5 of them, 6 of them, they were respectively 60, 75, or 90 hours. So if you start out with a TCR and you bid a TCR of 80 to 85 hours, PBS couldn't complete that because the trips do not fall within that TCR range. You would have to bid, for example, 70 to 80, so that you would get up to 5 trips. Now, the other thing about the TCR that's important is, remember, it is accumulative, okay? So if you bid in the first layer 70 to 75 and the second 75 to 80, it actually reads at 70 to 80 hours, okay? The TCR is accumulative. The only way you can reset it is if you use a clear, if you make use of the clear bid. That is basically resetting your bid for the next layer and starts all over. But it also means anything you had been awarded would be discarded because it starts from scratch. There are sometimes reasons that your TCR could be adjusted. Here is a list of them. I said you don't have to read them all because they will stay in the PowerPoint. But that caused to be adjusted. There's also a hyperlink for the flight service website, Josh.
I'll drop it in.
It will be dropped in. There is a flight service communication that came out a couple of years ago that is very detailed on how a TCR could be adjusted. And you might consider reviewing it. We'll drop the link in, so you just have to click on it and it will take you there. Hey, now let's talk about existing credit. And we're going to go live here so I can show you. Remember the dashboard that Marty referred to in the beginning of the presentation. And here is a wonderful thing. There is existing credit, 13 hours and 45 minutes from a carryover trip. Remember, this particular existing credit is going to be part of your TCR, so you have to account for it, right? Don't forget that. You have the option, however, to waive that carryover credit. If you, let's say, a high-time flyer, and you want to get as much time out of PBS, but you have 13 hours already carried in with your max of 110, that would put you down somewhere around 97 hours. If I did the math right. So you see where I'm going with that. So if you wanted to PBS to disregard it, you would go to line properties. And when you scroll down, there is a button that just simply says waive carryover credit. Let me show you how you select it. You see it right here. It says waive carryover credit. You simply select it and you have add bid. Now remember when Jeffrey did the bidding, every single property he used, it said layer 1 through 7. You see how it doesn't do this here? Because this is something when you elect to waive your carryover credit, it is guaranteed and it will apply to every single layer. Right? It's automatically, it's an all or nothing. You select it, you will get it, it will apply. Even Clearbid cannot clear it out. This is one thing that once you decide you have it, it is yours. Now, one of the things, don't forget that if you do use the waive carryover credit, the system will still read any legalities associated with the carryover trip. And by the way, you can only waive carryover credit for a sequence, not for anything else. But it will read the legalities. So please remember that when you do use it, to make sure that you bid applicable waivers if you need any. Now, that is the existing credit and the waive of it. And let's touch on vacation low. We got quite a few questions on that. Now, remember we talked earlier that low bid is anything between 40 to 69 hours, meaning below 70 hours. If you have 7 days of vacation, at least in a single bid month, you have a priority for vacation low. You will have to bid it in layer 1. That's a given, because if you bid anything else than 40 to 69, if you bid above 70, you could possibly forego being awarded vacation low. It's very important. Now, there are a couple of things. Remember how I said priority, but it doesn't mean it's a guarantee. If, for example, there is a minimum requirement at your base, you're required to work at least 70 hours, and you bid 40 to 50, you might not hold it. It just depends on people are bidding. You will not know in advance. Also, if there are coverage needed days within it, it might still give you a trip on the coverage needed day if you cannot hold the vacation low. There are some examples in the PBS bidding guide as well, so hopefully that will help you through it. Let's talk real quick about the holiday bidding strategy. And let me go to a different screen. And Joshua, where is the other screen, please? All right, we're waiting on Joshua. So,
Go ahead and log in one more time.
that's for no award. That's for no award.
Your session time,
Oh.
so you'll have to log in one more time.
All right, hang on one more moment. Yeah, just wanted to do that. Okay. Good thing I saved that bid. Okay. And Renee, I'm so sorry, let me go back for 1 second to the vacation low, please. Renee reminded me that if you bid on vacation low, let's say you have 56 hours from generated from your vacation, and you do not want any trip at all, you would have to bid a TCR that encompasses the 56 hours. So in this particular case, you could do 50 to 60 hours, or something like 52 to 57 hours. It has to encompass the 56. You do that in your layer 1, you put that TCR in, and then you go in and you bid every single day off that is outside of your vacation. Okay, that you are telling the system, I don't want anything. I have 56 hours of vacation. I'm good with that. I don't want any trips. That's what you would do in layer 1. Obviously in layer 2, you can go ahead and you added trips and remove, have not every single day as a day off. Cover it? All right. See, that's what we all have each other here for, to help. Okay, is this? Nope. Hang on, let me go find the right screen. Josh?
Yes.
Outside, look outside of the box.
I know.
You go back to the presentation.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I need the,
Other screen? Okay.
yeah, the other screen. We have several screens here, obviously. Okay, let's talk about holiday bidding real quick. Well, there's nothing really quick about it because we all have to think about it quite thoroughly, right? So let's use November as an example. Obviously, coverage dates or CN dates, we don't know about them until after the award process. But there is a good chance that holidays and weekends that are around the holiday generally become CN days. So for November, the 25th, as you can see, the 25th is actually Thanksgiving. Now, when you're bidding, be realistic, whether or not your seniority may be required to cover that holiday, and if you actually can hold it on, right? So if, for example, if you're unsure if you can hold it up or not, plan to bid accordingly. what you can do. In layers 1 through 4, go in. Remember how Jeffrey showed you how to put your days off under the days off tab. Go in and put the 25th off, layers 1 through 4. You click OK, so you can see it right here as a background. And then start adding your trips. So with the pairings that you know you can hold, right? So layers 1 and 2, be kind of more specific on what you want. In this particular case, like say layer 1 and 2, I put in turnarounds in layer 1, 2-day trips, 2-day pairings in layer 2. Layers 3 and 4, relax. Some of you bid. Remember how Jeffrey talked about bidding generic? This is where your generic comes in. As you can see, for example, the maximum landing per duty, 2 duties maximum per day. So we did that on the turnaround, so 2 days. On layer 3 as well. On layer 4, you relax it by not requesting minimum of 2-day landing. And now we get to layer 5 and 6. If you have not been able to hold that particular day off in layer 1 through 4, and it actually PBS goes through layer 5, this is where you move and not bid November 25th off. But here is where you can go and add some trips that you're potentially going to fly on the 25th. We added here, for example, turnarounds November 25th. That means that, you know, I could pick a turnaround that starts early in the morning, gets me back by 2 in the afternoon. I'm working a holiday, but I'm still in the home in time for dinner. Or in layer 6, I added 2-day trips that start on the 21st. Let's say I have an early Thanksgiving dinner with my family. Then I can go out at like 6 or 7, 8 o'clock at night on a 2-day trip. And I'll give the system something to work with. So those are your basic parameters. Layer 7, I didn't put anything in here on layer 7, but that would be where you give the system some basic parameters of what kind of other trips you're willing to work. Because if you don't give PBS something, trust me, it will find something for you, okay? So it's always better to say, what's the lesser evil of 2 trips? So you can go with that. Now, let's go back really to the holiday. This was the holiday bidding strategy, and I included a screenshot of what we just looked at as well. The half months max logic and the distribution of open time. So there is a portion in the contract that requires PBS to level out the open time, if there's any remaining open time throughout the month. We all know November, December, traditionally the flying is heavier at the end of the month and lighter in the beginning of the month, and flight attendants normally bid to work more in the first half of the month and less the second half of the month during the holiday. So PBS goes in and looks and said, well, I can give you flying in the first half of the month and the second half, but I kind of need to level out any trips that I have left. So what it could do is it could go in and say, you know what, I'll give you trips first half of the month, but I can't give you more than 35 hours within the first 15 days. And then the remainder of your hours has to be in the second half, just so it distributes it evenly. This is called the half month max logic, and we've seen it, as I said, traditionally on the majority in November and December. We won't know ahead of time if it is going to trigger it, because it depends on the bidding behavior at your base. It might be triggered in some bases, but not all bases. It might be at seniority 1,500 or at seniority 13,000, 20,000. We don't know until we get there. Okay, so that's an information for the holiday bidding. Also remember, there's normally a hotline that comes out regarding this, so keep an eye out for it. And with that, let's move on to reserve bidding. Here are the guidelines, which you probably, most of you know. You get 12 days off, you have to have a minimum of 2, no more than 8 days off in a row. That hasn't changed, but it's just here for your reference. And let's go and look at, Joshua,
Ma'am,
I need the PBS. There we go.
I got it.
Are you driving? All right. May I have Jeffries, please?
Okay, there you go. Are you looking for Jeffrey's old?
Yes, please. Please bear with us a moment.
There you go.
We have too many drivers on this one. Okey doke. So, when you are bidding for reserve, one of the most important things you can remember when you bid on reserve is that you bid under the reserve tab right here. Do not use days off tab. That is specifically for line holders. And remember, Jeffrey used that one earlier as he walked you through it. So you bid on reserve. And if you ever wonder, you know, did I pick the right calendar? The one thing that you can see is on this particular calendar, you see all those little numbers in the boxes. Those are the reserves that are required for particular days. Now, it shows you how many reserves might be required on those days. However, just because it says, 187? Is that what it says? Thank you. Oh, I didn't put my glasses down. Sorry. So it says 187. It doesn't mean that the first 187 most senior people can have that day off, because it can depend on legal patterns and legalities of other reserves that might prevent you from holding that particular day off. So it's the 4th. Let's say you have 500 people in the base, but 250 of them, or like 300 of them have either carryover trips, vacation leaves that could trigger for you to still have to work that day, even though you might be number 200 in the base. So please just remember, it doesn't guarantee that you would be off. Now, when you go to bid your reserve days, this is not very much different as when you do as a line holder. You go ahead and you click on a day. Let's pick the 4th. You add the bid. Oh, once again, remember you are in layer 1 right up here. So in layer 1, a bid, click the 4th and click add bid. It adds it right here. Now, let me show you one other thing real quick. You can also bid by date, So I could click on a Saturday, click add bid, and it will add all Saturdays. Oh, okay, did you see that? I gotta reload. Joshua?
Yeah.
All right,
Just hit okay and then.
yep, we'll see.
Yeah.
There we go.
Is that Jeff's?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you can just click that. right
Just
there.
click on the thing.
This one?
Yeah.
All right, I can't see that, so I just gotta trust you.
I have to trust Josh.
I don't know who to trust.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, so where were we? Oh, we were in the reserve. All right, so we pick the 4th. And then we have the option that you could bid by entire weeks. Now, here is one of the things that we've noticed and we had questions about before. The most important thing to remember is when you are bidding days off, is that you bid what is most important to you in your layer 1. If you were to bid remember you got 12 days off, let's say you bid all Saturdays and you bid all Sundays and all Fridays. How many does that make? Oh, I gotta take one out. No, delete bids. I'm sorry, it did. Add bids. Okay, if I bid these 12 days off in layer 1, I am telling PBS I have an important date. I want these 12 days off, whatever you can give me out of these 12 days. Even though you really want it off the 6th and 7th because you have a wedding to go to. PBS doesn't know that. You didn't tell it. So what you want to do is in your layer 1, which is your most important, you bid off the 6th and you bid off the 7th. Because those are the days you really need it. And now you go to layer 2. The reason why you have 7 layers is because we want you to use all 7 layers for your days off. Remember, this PBS is accumulative. It will add days off as it goes along. So if you now bid off 12th and 13th, or the 12th and 11th, then now you're telling in layer 2, this is the next most important days off that I want. And you just keep going. So make use of those 7 layers to stagger your requests in order of your importance. Now, there's one other thing that you gotta remember, which could be the way you set a pattern. When you, for example, bid off the 4th of July, I'm sorry, the 4th of November as a single day. And then you go to layer 2 and you bid off the 11th and 12th. Remember, one of the guidelines is that you have a minimum of 2 days off. Right here, if you don't put a second day in, I mean, PBS, if it can give you the 4th, it will give you the 4th. But it will also have to give you either the 3rd or the 5th, one or the other, okay? And as was on the screen, before I hand the remainder of the slides over to Renee, you see here, waive to allow carryover to be days off. What this means is, since we have a carryover here, it's a perfect example. If I do not add this as a bid, but just leave it alone, then these 2 days will be part of my reserve, days, part of my reserve obligation, okay? Say in a month you have 18 days, it already ate 2 of them. If, however, you were to add this as a bid, and it will only change from add bid to delete bid. It will just be there. Then it means these 2 days are part of my days off. And remember how we said that you need a minimum of 12 days off? You just ate 2 of them. And since we're talking about patterns right here, if those 2 days off are days off, and you bid off the 4th off, guess what other day you will be off? You have to have a day off on the 3rd because they have to be consecutive. You could not have a single reserve day there, right? Because those are considered days off if you choose that waiver. If you look at it and said, you know what, maybe I don't want to do that, just click on delete bid and it will be gone. It is taken back out. But this is, once again, remember the carryover and waive carryover credit? It's an all or nothing. You choose it, it's done. No restrictions. It's a, okay. That was some information on reserve bidding. And let's now go, and here are slides to remind you of where you go and what to click and the important reminders. And let's go to reserve coverage needed days, and Renee will be so kind to walk you through it. Thank you.
Hi, everyone, and thank you again for joining us today. So with reserve coverage needed days, Jeff talked a little bit about these already. Bottom line is there are days where we're going to need additional staffing on these days. It's for reserves as well, oftentimes more often for reserves. Basically, as flight attendants are bidding, the PBS system sees how many trips are still available on the rest of the month, and how many flight attendants based on legal patterns can actually be awarded on those days. So as it processes, it starts assigning coverage needed days. You won't know if you have coverage needed days until awards are final. At that point, when you look at your award, if you look, you'll see the reserve coverage needed dates that you were required to cover. Those are always going to show, and that's going to help you to understand why you did or did not get certain days off. This is. Oh, so sorry. This was yours.
Oh, no, I thought you'd take over from here.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Is you okay?
Oftentimes, holiday months have multiple coverage days imposed due to required staffing. If you really want a specific holiday off, the best thing to do, like Linda said before, put that as a single day off in layer 1. Everything you bid in a layer is considered equally, so if it's that holiday you want, bid that off. Bid trips that are going to, or bid days that are going to bring you for legal patterns so that you can have that holiday off. But basically, you really have to realize that it's all based on seniority and legal patterns. PBS does not schedule your flex days and golden days, but it does consider these when they're building a legal pattern for you. So you have to keep that in mind. Remember, the flex days, it's got to follow a reserve day. I won't go through all of these. They're here. Keep these in mind. Review these when you're bidding. But just remember, it's got to give you a legal pattern. If you have planned absences, it may not be able to build a legal pattern, and it'll assign you what's called an infeasible pattern. You can't bid for this, but they may have to schedule you to one if there's no place to put a legal pattern. All right, we're going to talk about buddy bidding now. There's a buddy bid checklist. Marty already pointed this out to you at the beginning of this slideshow. You can find this on the APFA scheduling webpage. If you're going to buddy bid, please go through this list. Make sure you check it twice before you submit your bids. You can't buddy bid with up to 4 buddies. It's really easy. Somebody starts the buddy bid. They say, hey, I want to bid with Jeff. I'm going to add Jeff to my buddy bid. He's going to see that he's been invited to my buddy bid. He can either accept or reject it. When you're buddy bidding, PBS takes the initiator's bid, goes through all 7 layers, takes the initiator's bid, and then uses that as a layer 1 bid for all of the followers. All right, as a follower, don't bid anything in layer 1, except for maybe some certain waivers that apply specifically to you that may not apply to the initiator. All right, layer 1 in both your regular bid and your standing bid should be blank. And only in layer 1 will be used the initiator's award. After that, in case you can't be awarded your full bid additional choices in layers 2 through 7. When PBS is awarding, it is going to award a position to the initiator that has enough open positions to accommodate the buddies. The one thing it is not going to pay attention to is if those open positions require a qualification. If it requires a qualification, you may not be awarded your buddy bid together. I mentioned this already. For instance, if you as a follower have a carry-in trip and the initiator doesn't, you may want to add a waiver to allow 30 and 7 so you can have that first trip of the month with your buddy. So let your initiator bid the waivers for the most part, but if there's something specific to you, you may need to add that. Positions, the initiator will always receive the first awarded position. And the remaining positions are going to be awarded in seniority order to those followers. So this is just an example for you to pay attention to how it's going to be awarded. During the award process, sometimes bases have line constraints, a minimum or a maximum. Whatever that line constraint is for the most junior buddy, that is going to apply to all of the buddies. Forced qualifications. Unfortunately, sometimes if we have a qualification such as purser or speaker, we are forced into flying a sequence that has our qualification. That may break your buddy bid, so please keep that in mind. Pre-planned absences. If you have pre-planned absences, these are going to show in your PBS opening bid, okay? The credit for that has been mentioned a number of times already, is going to show in your dashboard. They'll also be blocked off in your opening calendar. You cannot be awarded a trip that conflicts with those days, so please keep that in mind. Vacation premiums. This can be found in the JCBA section 3 under compensation. You're going to receive each applicable premium for your vacation hours, if all your awarded hours are included in the premium. So that would be if you bid purser trips and you hold all purser trips or all lead trips, then your vacation hours, the 4 hours for each vacation day, is going to be paid the equivalent premium paid for that. Now we get to awards. The one thing about awards, sometimes we see LN and PN and don't really understand what that means. LN pretty much means your line properties were too restrictive and you need to relax those in the future. PBS could not find a combination of sequences that satisfied your line properties after looking at all 7 layers, so it had to ignore some of these. PN means it had to pick up trips outside of your pairing pools because there weren't enough sequences that could be held at your seniority. Coverage needed days, we've talked about these. PBS continually looks forward to calculate the number of duty periods on the day versus the remaining number of line holders who are legal to cover those positions. If your pairing pools do not include pairing pools that touch a coverage needed day, PBS is going to have to award from outside your layers and without regard to your pairing pools to make sure that day is covered. Shuffle. Everybody seems to get very, very confused about shuffles, but basically what this is PBS could not award you based on your preferences and TCR by layer 7. So it had to eliminate some of the earlier sequences and then try to bid still from within your pairing pools from the earliest layer possible. It just couldn't complete it based on your TCR. Jeff and I have worked so many of these trying to prove that shuffle didn't need to happen, and every time we fail, and we spent hours trying to rebuild sequences. Basically, it couldn't meet your TCR with that particular trip, so it had to kick it out. That's me.
Okay, all right. I think we've reached the end of our presentation for now, so we have an extra 30 minutes. So have we been looking at some of the questions that have been coming in? All right.
So one of the questions was, we talked about double ups and multiple pairings. Nuances of red eye avoidance, for example, theme trips sequences that we see that are technically not considered a red eye. Does anybody have any strategies for avoiding those trips? For instance, I know out of Charlotte, we had a Denver all-nighter turn. Doesn't show up as a red eye because it's not actually touching that 1 minute of 1 a.m. to 01:01. So my strategy was always I bid trips that had mid-sequence reports after 5 a.m.
Yes, that's a
Okay.
good, or mid-sequence report or mid-sequence release, or actually mid-sequence report. So if you report after,
Yeah.
but not necessarily, I mean, there's a category of flights that if they don't touch 0100 to 0101 home base time. For example, if you have a departure, home base time, yeah, the red eye, the definition of a red eye is home base time. So let's say it's a 1 a.m. departure, I'm Charlotte based, it's a 1 a.m. departure out of LA, that's 4 a.m. in Charlotte. Even though that's a red eye to our bodies, the system is programmed to the contractual language, which is 0100 to 0101 home base time. So you might say, you might give it a mid-sequence report after, or let's see, mid-parent report.
Okay. Yeah, I hate a red eye. I mean, the ones that we all actually know as red eyes, you know, I cannot stand doing those kind of trips. I'm just not
Right.
equipped for that. So that was always my strategy, is if I bid a mid-sequence report after 5 a.m. and that worked really well to eliminate pink eyes, other trips that
Yeah,
technically didn't fall in the red eye category because I wasn't bidding red eyes for sure, but
and everything has to be specific to your home base time. So yes, and I'm trying to remember, we used to have a really good example of this back when we taught PBS a few years ago. And I'm trying to remember what our example was. But that's one that maybe we can look into a bid sheet, and the next time we do this class, we can dive a little deeper into that. And because I don't want to
put that in our hotline too,
Yeah.
if you can find that example.
All right. Prefer or avoid. Okay.
Yeah.
One of them we just got in was how to prefer or avoid a particular aircraft type when you are searching for specific sequences. So again, to find that electronic bid sheet, go to, oh, I'm not on there.
Up there.
I'm not on there anymore. Can you pass that back? Thank you. All right. All right, so I'm going to go back to the pairing tab here. I'm going to go down to search pairings. So again, I can add search criteria. So if I want to avoid a particular aircraft type, let's say I don't want to fly, where's avoid aircraft? Avoid aircraft. Okay, so let's say I don't want to fly the 737 MAX. I can add that to my search criteria here, and now it's going to populate any trip in here that is not on the 737 MAX. So that's going to be every other aircraft type will be included here. So that's how you would avoid it. You want to be careful with a sequence only has to have one leg on that particular aircraft type. So let's say it's a 4-day trip and there's only one leg of a 737 MAX and the rest of it is either on regular 737 or, say A321. It would eliminate that sequence that pairing from my pairing pool simply because there's only one leg on it. So you want to be careful how you use these types of avoid and prefer. Same way if I decided to use prefer aircraft type. Let's see, where's prefer aircraft type? There we go, prefer aircraft here. It's only one of my favorites. So let's say I really like to fly the 777-200. Now that's going to capture everything in my base that's on the 777-200. So for Charlotte, that's going to be Honolulu. Oh, there's Punta Cana does a turn. So that's how you would do it during this on the search function, on the search pairings property. Just be careful to use those types of properties as generically, because they can sometimes have unintended results, as it will pull out trips that, especially if you use that in conjunction with a specific bid. The same thing that happened to me earlier when I selected Honolulu trips, and then if you click prefer or avoid an aircraft, it will add, you know, it could add a bunch of more sequences in there that I didn't actually intend to bid in that layer. Does that answer that question, Renee, as asked? Okay, perfect.
Another one question was maximize credit, that property. You want to take that one?
Okay, maximize credit option. This is something that is, it can be quite confusing because what PBS actually does is it goes by duty periods, okay? So it doesn't really look at the total credit of the sequence, but it looks, for example, if it has a choice, when it awards you and it has a choice of a 2-day trip or a 3-day trip, and they're weighted equally within your bid, it would give you this 3-day trip. Now, mind you, that 2-day trip is worth 14 hours and the 3-day trip is worth 15. That is not advantageous to you, but it will look by duty period. If you go into the PBS guide, there is, just type in the search fields, maximize credit, and it gives several examples on there on how to use it. And I apologize, it's one of those things that even before I've always looked at it, maximize credit. It should be guys maximize duty periods. So it does make it makes it harder. I don't know if we can ever get that changed, but that's what it is right now. It doesn't look at the actual credit. It's at duty periods.
Before you put your mask on, you want to talk about clear bids?
Yes, I can talk about clear bids. Okay. May I have the mouse, please, because I'm going to show this to you right here. This is Jeff. We just got to remind Jeffrey to really redo his bids before they're closed.
Before actually closed, I know.
Before they actually close, because this would not be fun. All right. So when you look under line properties, clear bid is something that you've got to be aware when you're using. That it clears, it does exactly what it says. It clears your bid. So if you go under line, you look for properties. You can add it. See it right here? You can add it at any layer. Layer 1 is not advisable because you don't have anything. You don't want to use clearbid for layer 1. But let's say you use clearbid and layer 2 and layer 4, and then you click add bid. So what it will do, let's go to our layer tab. All right. Do you see how it says minus 113 right here? Because remember, we used it clearbid in layer 2. So layer 1, whatever Jeffrey put in as his bidding properties, generated 248 slots, 248 possible awards, right? In layer 2, it has 135 pairings. Okay, we started out with 248. We used clear bids. What you told the system, what you told PBS, when it could not complete Jeffrey's, you know, it looked layer 1, it couldn't create a bid. It now has to go to layer 2. The first thing it sees is clear bid. When you're trying it, is throw everything out. So we just threw 248 things out. And whatever he had as his bidding properties for layer 2 only created 135 new options for you. The minus 113, just don't look at that minus, because it does tend to confuse because it's 113 positions less than the 248. But this is what you created, 248 in the first layer. You clear bid, you threw them all out, and you did 135. Now, what you also have thrown out, if you use clear bid, is, let's say of those 248, remember he kept going on about Honolulu, didn't he? Wasn't that Honolulu that he kept talking about? Yeah. Honolulu, layer 1. Well, his TCR, he bid his TCR 100 to 110. How much are the Honolulu's worth in Charlotte? roughly?
I
20?
think it's 20 some hours, yeah.
All right, so 100 to 110, 20 hours, that would be 5 trips, right? Let's say you could have held 5 trips. Now, he was able to hold 4, which would have given him how many hours? 80. Okay, his TCR was 100 minimum, so it didn't meet it. But now it needs to go to layer 2. Instead of giving him the 4 Honolulu trips that he could have held for 80 hours and then finding something additional on layer 2, it sees clear bid. Clear my bid. 4 Honolulus that he coveted are being taken out. That is what the clear bid. It literally clears your bid. So those 4 Honolulus go back in the pool, and Marty, who's junior to him at the base, going yay, while he now goes to the 135 options that he has in layer 2. Let's look at layer 1 with all Honolulus. Check your pairing pool. Layer 2 now has all Frankfurts, which he's not going to be able to hold. Let's face it. So now remember, he also clear bid in layer 4, right? Let's return to layer over 4. And here, once again, you see that? So layer 2, he created 135, layer 3, 405. And then what did he do in layer 4? Clear bid. What gets thrown out? 405. Bye-bye. We start over again. Now, he might have held one of those Frankfurts, but he just lost it as well. So clear bid is a very specific thing. There was actually one question that we did receive. I'm going to touch on this really quick because it's with the TCR. Because somebody had asked, okay, I want to fly high time 100 to 110 hours in my layer 1, but only if I get all Honolulus. But if I can't have all those Honolulus worth 100 hours, I now want to fly low time in layer 2 and 3. Remember how we talked in the TCR about accumulation of the TCR? So once you bid 100 to 110, if you now go in layer 2 and you bid 40 to 60, the actual TCR you bid is 40. That's the lowest that it can find to 110. So when it gets to layer 2, it looks and says, well, you want anything between 40 and 110, and then it will just pick through your pairing pool. However, if you really want to now just get 42 to 60 hours, you could use Clearbit, and it would throw the TCR of 100 to 110 and go to 40 to 60. That is the only way you can go from that high time down to low. Other than that, it's accumulative. Okay, I took up enough oxygen by talking.
I think the most important piece that you said, it's a very complex bidding strategy or bidding tool. So
You got to be careful.
you got to be very careful. So yeah, that's not something for, for everyone to use.
And it's not for faint-hearted.
It is not for the faint-hearted. I've used it once. There was a question about vacation low. So the question was, how did vacation low, which I think Linda covered a few slides ago. But the question also continued on with, if I have 6 days of vacation and 3 settling days, do I qualify for vacation low? And the answer to that, I believe, would be no, because it only reads the actual vacation hours towards vacation low.
7 vacation days, yeah.
Yes.
You would have to have 7 or more vacation days, independent of your settling days, in order to qualify for vacation low. So that is that. What was the other question you were just looking at in there?
I've got another one for you. It's like
And Marty, here's an easy one.
Yeah.
Will this be offered again in November?
Yes.
And the same exact seminar, and can it be accessed?
Yeah.
So yes, it will probably be a very similar seminar. We may add some stuff to it and based on the questions that we're receiving, and we are scheduled to have one in November.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this session is being recorded. It'll be put out in a hotline after the meeting's over. You can go back to watch it on our YouTube or on the APFA Facebook, APFA website. And we'll have it set up for probably November 12th again. we'll look at the dates and we'll get
That
a
was
hotline.
10,
I
but
think-
yeah.
I think we're gonna wanna do around the 10th, yeah.
Yeah.
And then, I also dropped in for everyone in the communications. There's a survey that we put together so that we could get feedback for this session, and make it better next time too. Just continue improving the service for you guys.
Since we're talking about administrative type things, there was a question about bidding services, whether those are being offered. I think the best place to get information on that is to reach out to some of your colleagues in your base, because we don't offer a bidding service, so, and I know the company isn't offering any kind of bidding service. I do see some of those on Facebook, so if you're in any of the Facebook groups, you might want to take a look there and see if there's any bidding services offered. Oh, another one. I think we touched on it briefly, but how do you clear and start all over? Let's say you've got a whole bunch of stuff, because Jeff has.
I have a bunch of stuff. So let's say I want to,
In his presentation.
so let's say I want to start over again. This is my,
Yes, that's great. Hold on.
Okay,
oh, it's not up. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I want to just start all over, if I don't like what I've got doing, especially, you know, after Linda put in clear bids here and trying to, you know, mess up with my bid, I literally just click on all the exits, excuse me, to delete every property that I had in my bid, all the way on down to my line properties. So that's how I would that's how I would, you know, start with a clean slate. If I didn't like what I was doing and I just wanted to start over from scratch, literally click on all the X's, or if, you know, you don't have to, you know, delete them all. If you just want to delete specific properties, you can just click on the X that corresponds to that one. Another question we just got was about how do I change my PBS password? Your PBS is accessed through Crew Portal, which is accessed through JetNet. So you would use your JetNet credentials to sign in. If for some reason your JetNet password is not working, or you've forgotten it, or you've got locked out, you would need to contact the IT department to reset your password. So that's that. Delete the bid. Is there anything else coming up, Renee? That
Linda, you want to get
Okay,
that one?
one of the questions is, and this is about TCR. I want to fly low time if my starting TCR on layer 1 is 40 to 50 and PBS awards 4 trips for a total value of 45. But the minimum hours I have to work with because of operational need is 55. Then yes, your TCR would go to layer 2. If you bid 40 to 60, it will go draw 1 more trip from your layer 2 to get up to your hours.
There's a question on buddy bidding. If I have 2 days of removal for the next month and my buddy has 2 vacation days, can we still buddy bid? Yes, you can still buddy bid. The initiator needs to know which days you have off as well, so they can try to not bid trips that touch those days. But yes, certainly you can still buddy bid together. If, depending on seniority, the initiator ends up being awarded a trip, of course, that touches one of the followers' vacation days, they wouldn't be awarded trips on that day. But certainly you can bid together and just try to bid around each other's days off.
I need to come back real quick to the question that was just posed, because after reading through it again, I was not sure, because it says I have to work because of operational need is like 55 hours. If there is a minimum in your base, it will know it when it gets to your seniority. So the minimum normally is not 55, it would be more like in the 70-hour range, right? So at the minimum, the operational need is 70 hours. Automatically, when it reads you layer 1, and if you only bid 40 to 50 hours, this is, remember how I talked about the adjustment of the TCR? This is one of those cases. It would start adjusting your TCR in layer 1 right off the bat. It would read 40 to 70, minimum 70 hours, and it would pull trips from your layer 1 to get you to the 70. Only if it cannot find enough trips would it go to layer 2. I'm sorry, I just had to clarify that after reading the question. Okay. What else do we have?
we just got a question. We have a question about pairing lengths. Am I still active here, Joe?
Yeah, you are.
I'll get you.
Okay. Trying to get my mouse right. Oh, I'm sorry. That's what,
Do you want to?
I'm so sorry.
I just had a.
I know, we're fighting over control of the mouse here.
Mhm.
Okay, so the question was, can I have more than one preference for pairing length in a single layer? And the answer to that is yes. So I'm gonna go to generic properties, add more properties, and I'm gonna do pairing length. So let's say I don't want any turns, but I'm willing to do 2 days, so pairing length 2. And I'm also willing to do pairing length 3. I'm saying I want either 2 days, or I want pairing length 2, or I want pairing length 3. So let's just say we wanted to make sure that they were all NIPD trips as an initial.
And you could get a mix of 2 or 3.
And I could get either all, because at this point, everything is equal in that layer.
Yeah.
All the NIPD 2 days are in that layer, all the NIPD 3 days are in that layer. Once, assuming I can hold them all at my seniority, the system would choose. So I could get a combination of 2 days and 3 days. I could get all 2 days, or I could get all 3 days. So you can put those two don't conflict, but you wouldn't necessarily, you're not preferencing one over the other if you stick them in the same layer. If I preferred 2 days before 3 days, then I would just layer them out, and I would do prefer pairing length 2 in layer 1. So if the system's gonna look for 2-day trips first, and then if it can complete my award there, it would stop. If not, it would give me whatever I can hold in layer 1 of the 2 days, and then continue on to layer 2, looking for 3 days that I can hold to complete my award. So yes to that.
Can you talk, since you've got the control there,
Oh.
you want to talk about bidding ODANs? Because there's a couple of questions here about ODAN bidding.
Okay.
One is, I want to come in from an ODAN and not go out that night. I want to go out the next day. And one is, I want to come in from my ODAN today and I want to go out on an ODAN later today.
Multiple pairing.
Right.
Linda, do you want to speak to the multiple pairing piece of that?
You, we walked through that earlier, right? But this is one of the important things. If you do not want to go out one night, come back in the morning and go out the same night, do not bid multiple pairings.
So that's what I put up on my screen here. So I said prefer pairing type ODAN in layer 1.
Yes,
And I'm saying allow multiple pairings. If I don't want what she just described,
then do not bid that.
I'm not gonna bid that. I'm not
Right.
gonna put that in my layer 1.
And here is the thing, that if you are a high time flyer, you will not be able to get your time in.
right.
Because if it reads as much as 1 single minute on a calendar day, then it will consider it multiple day.
Right.
So you would not be able to back up your flying. Just as an FYI. Does that clarify that?
Mhm, mhm.
Okay. There was another TCR question. If somebody has this vacation and in layer 1 bids 40 to 63 and then in subsequent layer drops down 40 to 50. The computer recognizes that your floor is 40, but you already set the ceiling at 63. Since it's a cumulative, it will remain there. However, remember how we talked about the clear bit, we could clear that out, or if you go in layer 2, let's say in layer 1, you get 48 hours worth of flying. But your TCR is 63, it cannot complete it. It goes to layer 2. It already has 48 hours, it now sees 40 to 50, and it can decide to stop right there and give you that award. However, now that you have additional pairings, it could bring you up to 63, potentially could give you now a trip that brings you to, like, say, 55. Because the range is still 40 to 63. But if you had enough hours, it could stop. Does that make sense? Okay.
This is kind of a follow-up to your clear bids question, because this is a great question. If my layer 1 through 4, my layers 1 through 4
Mhm.
are all morning turns, But my second choice is all-nighters. Can I use clear bids to make sure each option is pure?
Yes, and this is one of those things. Remember, if you have a TCO, let's say of 80 to 85 hours, and the turnarounds brought you to 79, and it's just missing a little bit. You could have a line of turnarounds. If you use Clearbit, and we'll throw all those out, and then it will read your all-nighters, right? So yes, you can separate them out that way.
Speaking of all-nighters, red eyes, I mean, there was a
Yes.
question a few minutes ago that came up about, if you'll go back to that one, Marty, can I have control back?
And it's yours.
Okay, so the question is,
I moved it.
oh, okay. It was a question about avoiding the red eyes with minimum layover time. And so I think it was from someone from Philadelphia, I believe. So I think the question was probably referring to what we kind of commonly call pink eyes, which would fly out in the morning, you do a daytime layover, and then fly an all-nighter back, or a red eye back that night. I think a good way of avoiding that type of a trip would be to put in a minimum layover time of, say, if you put in a minimum layover time of at least, 15 or 20 hours, that would be one way to eliminate that type of a trip. You could do a you could do because I'm trying to, it really would be specific to your base and what kind of trips actually exist in your base. So I guess we'd have to see an example of what kind of trip it is that we're actually avoiding. Because I think the question was also referring to duty periods. So if you had it, say, what I just described would be a 2-day trip or pairing length 2. But if you, not actually duty periods, because that's still 2 duty periods. But if it were a 3-day trip as opposed to a 2-day trip, you wouldn't be doing more than likely that type of a trip. So I hope that answered that question, or at least gave you, some guidance towards what to do there. If not, email us again and we'll try and. What qualifies for premium pay? So the premium pays are purser, lead, speaker, galley. There are certain galleys that are paid premiums.
NIPD?
NIPD
NIPD.
and IPD. Does that cover it?
Anything else?
I think that's all. the
And it
premiums.
actually is covered on one of the screens within this.
Somewhere back through.
And there's a chart in your contract.
And there's a chart.
Yeah.
There's a chart in the contract. That's in section 3, right? That's compensation. Yeah. So section 3.
We've got a good question. How can we see what seniority level is currently holding low and high time at our base?
That's a good question. If we go to the PBS summary, how can you tell who's holding lie or ho at high or low at your base? Every month, the PBS admins put out a PBS summary that shows us all those line constraints. At what seniority was the cutoff for high and or low at your base?
And APFA sends out a hotline every month with this summary that covers all of that information. It breaks down everything, showing who holds who's eligible for vacation high and low and who holds it. It shows the reserved numbers, line averages.
Okay, while we move on to the next question, then maybe I'll try and find that really quick.
Before
And then we can talk
if I can just, I certainly, Jeff, Marty, Linda, and I, we are part of the PBS team here at APFA. Along with us, Alan and Robin, who are been trainers for some of us for quite some time. We also have Betsy and Rondi, and we just want to make sure to say a special thank you to them for all of their assistance that they provide with the PBS team here at APFA.
Oh, it's going to be. Okay.
Because I think it's important to talk through that sheet so everybody
Yeah.
can look at it. and-
PBS,
Thank you.
and it'll filter all your PBS hotlines together.
Okay.
While he's scrolling through that, we do have a lot of hotlines that have come out that talk about coverage needed dates. We've talked a lot about different kind of PBS things, as well as a lot of rescheduling issues, because we've been able to get some clarification on a lot of things, and we're still working on a lot more. things with scheduling. So just wanted to make sure that you guys know, go back and read some of these hotlines. They're really gonna be beneficial. Okay.
So before you walk through this, real quick, do you mind going back and showing them how you got to this? Because I know we kind of did it in the background while we were talking.
Okay, so this is the PBS summary. The APFA, our communications department, publishes a hotline every single month once bids are final, once they come out. So
Let's go back two more.
Two more.
So from the home page,
from the home page,
we'll click hotline at the top.
I'm going to hotline here at the top. And then I'm going to go down here to PBS. So that's going to filter out and only show me the PBS related hotlines. I'm going to scroll down here. So there was actually a mistake to the award summary that was published by the company. So we had to publish a revised summary.
And this goes out every month.
This goes out every single month, and it comes out within a couple of hours on the 18th. Once bids come out, the company sends it right over, and then we publish it in the hotline within a couple of hours usually. So the question was about vacation low. Remind me?
Just who was holding high and who was holding
Who
low.
was hiding? Okay, so if we look at all the different bases here, so the constraints are here. So there was actually a minimum constraint at every single base except for LaGuardia for the month of October. So every base was held to a minimum, and then you go to the next line and it shows where did that minimum start. And the minimum 70 hours started at line 1, meaning the most senior person who was bidding as a line holder in Boston was held to a minimum of 70 hours. Same with Charlotte, the most senior person bidding, with the exception, there were some people who were awarded vacation low at those bases, but not everyone for the month of October was awarded vacation low. It just didn't hit every single seniority.
And if you go a couple of boxes up, it actually says high/low line. The third one down.
Just up a little bit more.
Look in the black bar.
Oh, here,
Go up.
okay, yes.
Yep.
So there were 82 low lines awarded in Charlotte, 22 low lines awarded in Boston. Because they started at line 1 for the men, that means that the only people who held low in those bases would have been bidding vacation low.
Explain the double men.
The double men, let's see, who was it?
Charlotte.
That's right, there's a double men. In Charlotte, there was a min that started at line 1, that was 70 hours. And then there was another min that was started at line 639. So that's your status seniority for that month. The 639th most junior, or, number 639 in the award process was held to a minimum of 78. So anybody junior to that person would have also been held to a minimum of 78. Yeah, and so it looks like most bases had a double min for last month. LaGuardia had no constraints. Oh, we're at time. We're at 3 o'clock, so. All right. So we don't take up, we thank you for joining us today and for spending a couple hours of your precious free time with us. Again, we want to remind you that a recording of this town hall, as well as the PowerPoint presentation, will be available on apfa.org a little bit later today. One of the most frequent questions we get is what happened to Fabric? The company decided to disband Fabric a year ago. We all came to rely on Fabric for PBS resources and many other topics, but that was a huge resource for us, and we get that question on the daily. Unfortunately, here at APFA, we just don't have the financial resources to replicate what we had at Fabric. We have communicated to the company that flight attendants want this resource back. We have not been successful in our lobbying efforts, so we would encourage you to let the company know that you would like to see the return of Fabric. So you can let them know on the support tab, PBS support tab. You can let your flight service managers know, let anybody know at the company, and if enough flight attendants, you go to Crew News, tell them at Crew News the next, if you're at CQ anytime in the next couple of months and you are at Crew News and you see any of top management there, let them know how important Fabric is to the flight attendants. There are a few bases that have APFA reps available for PBS. I don't have an exhaustive list of that, so check with your local base reps, your local APFA base reps, to find out who the specialists are at your particular base. If there are some PBS specialists, that'll be there. So anyway, thank you for your time today. And does anybody have anything else to add before we close? No?
We appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah, welcome back
Thank
Welcome
you.
back.
to the EBLO wake up.
Thank you, everyone. Fly safely.
Bye.
Bye,
Thank
thank you.